Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Connecting and Stuff podcast. Today, you should get ready to elevate your marketing game with our guest, Naseef. He's a B2B marketing consultant with over 7 years of experience in everything from demand generation to SEO, social media marketing to performance marketing, and lot more. With a massive following on LinkedIn and a successful newsletter with over 2,400 subscribers, knows everything that can make your marketing successful. And he's not a stranger to the podcast. This is his second time joining us. So welcome, Naseef. Welcome back. Would you like to add anything to the introduction?
I mean, first of all, thanks for that wonderful introduction. That's the best ever introduction I've had in my life, I think. So thanks for having me. It's been a long time. I think it's been more than 6 months maybe since we connected. So it's really good to be back. And what I like about the conversations on your podcast is that they're more casual in nature than being, all too serious. So looking forward to it.
Great. So the last time you were here, we kind of touched upon a few controversial topics, and people loved it. So we talked about why sales hate marketing, and you answered it really well. So this time, I thought I'll have more controversial questions for you. This time, I guess we'll be talking more about the startup, working in startup as a marketer. What kind of challenges you face, and how generally founders look at marketing when they launch a business. So let's get started then, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So my first question is, why is marketing important for startup, especially when they are 1 or 2 years old? So I'll tell you why I have this question because startups, they generally depend on outbound when it comes to getting business, right? So I mean, if I take myself as an example, I'm not a startup, but I'm starting a freelancing career, and I don't think marketing is important for me right now. For me, reaching out to people every day is important, and this is how I'll get my business, or I am getting my business. Similarly, for startups, they generally start with outbound, um, and even if they have grown a little bit, they continue focusing on outbound, and they don't start marketing because it's a lot of resources and spending a lot of time for them, so they kind of avoid it. So why do you think it's important for startups to start marketing?
Yeah. So I'll start with the point that you mentioned, right? So usually when startups they start up, they start building the product, the services, their portfolio. Initially, how the growth journey happens is they either try to leverage their network to build some solid customer base, or they set up a 3 to 4 member SDR or BDR team to do active outbound marketing. So predominantly, these are the two ways in which startups grow in their initial phase, right? And a lot of these entrepreneurs have their own large entrepreneur network, and they help each other. Most of the times, what happens is that though you say that our product is like really unique and it comes with so and so features, most of the time there might not be too many differentiators between product A and product B, right? So it doesn't hurt a friend of yours to buy a product that you are selling which serves or solves a specific problem for them, and this is a give and take. And what happens, especially for startup, if it has some investor involvement, like a seed funding for example, they tap into their network as well, and there is this web of companies which end up buying from each other, and that becomes a good talking point for startups initially. And they also invest in outbound marketing, sometimes a bit of PR in the beginning, and that's what gives them the push in the initial 1 or 2 years. But what happens is once you cross that stage, right, you hit a dead end, or you reach a saturation point where you're not able to scale beyond a point. If at all you have to scale, you have to just keep hiring more and more people, more SDRs, more salespeople, which is really not a scalable model because it really depends on the time people spend on doing outreach, which is when startups have to really think about looking to marketing and building a marketing engine or function that can compound over time. And usually when a startup is into the first or second year of business, they would have figured out basic things like product market fit or service market fit, and they know what problems their product is actually solving. And that's absolutely the right time for a company to go ahead and do marketing aggressively, because then they know how to position their product among the hundreds of other alternatives out there, how to craft the perfect messaging or value proposition in a way that it hooks their prospects and customers, right? So for these two three reasons, I think it's very important for startups which have been in business, let's say 1 or 2 years, to really think about or really be aggressive about marketing.
Right. It makes sense. And I guess you're right, because if you solely depend on sales or SDR or BDRs, you can only scale by hiring more and more people. And it gets really tricky. I mean, there are examples. You can see startups that are 10 years old and they're still in startup phase and they are not doing a lot of marketing. So they are still stuck in that phase where they are getting business from their sales team only, and they're continuously hiring more people. And they kind of hit a rock bottom when their sales team start leaving, right? So if you have a really huge sales team of like 20 people, and then the sales leader just left, and generally when people leave, they just kind of take their team with them as well, maybe clients as well if they are joining a competitor. So it makes sense to create your brand, start creating your brand, and stop depending on your sales team entirely. So I think marketing, yeah, definitely, you're right, and I really like your point about your investor angle. So if you're talking to investor as well, I think marketing helps there as well. So you can say, I mean, investor can directly ask you how are you different from your bigger competitor? How are you different from them? So you can show them, oh, we have these clients, we are doing these things better than them, and we are planning to outgrow them perhaps in 2 years or 5 years or whatever target we can set for them. So I guess it helps with not just customers but also investors. I guess, yeah, it is important,
Absolutely.
yeah, but a lot of founders, unfortunately, they don't see. I feel like they are not playing a long term game. They are just trying to hit this quarter's target, and that's why they are focusing on sales more than the marketing. In the second question, they would ask is how to set a realistic expectations from your marketing hires, because if you are a founder and you don't have a lot of understanding of what happens in marketing, you will perhaps hire a marketing person and tell them to generate lead or get me these many MQLs or SQLs in a quarter or in a year, which is not honestly realistic because setting up marketing takes time. So, how do you suggest founders to set a realistic target for their marketing hires?
Yeah, so one of the points that you mentioned, right, playing that long term game is definitely a key thing for marketing. I'll come to that, but first, I just wanted to uh, talk about one common tendency that I see among founders, that especially in the B2B space, that marketing, the first marketing hire is taken in to support sales. And you I have even seen job descriptions that talk throughout about supporting sales in creating pitch decks, supporting sales in creating battle cards, supporting sales in managing events and creating collaterals for events, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, sales enablement is definitely one of the key components of marketing, but that's not the only thing a marketer is hired for, right? A marketer is, in short, hired to build a system for you to consistently create demand and capture that demand, and make sure that capture demand is high intent and pass them on to sales, right? So that's essentially what a marketer has to do. So when you start off, don't think from an angle of hiring a marketer just to support sales, right? Look at it more from what is it that you want from the marketing function as such. Marketing and sales have to align with each other, but they essentially have to work as two different functions, right? So think about what is it that you want from marketing. Some of the points that you mentioned, right? More MQLs, more SQLs, more pipeline revenue, whatever those goals are, you have to first start from that point. Second thing is that you really have to when you set your goals for the marketing hire, the first marketing hire, you really have to think about your short term as well as long term goals, right? Your long term goals can be improving brand awareness, improving the customer base, reducing churn, improving revenue, whatever those things are, right? Your short term goals could be something like improving the number of leads, for example, or improving MQL to SQL conversion rate. Some of these things, when I say short term, there is no standard definition as to what is short term as well. Uh, But what I'm trying to say is that when you set goals for the marketing hire, make sure you give some short-term goals which are realistic to achieve, right? And make sure you also give some long-term objectives which can be achieved over a period of, let's say, 9 months, 1 year, whatever that period is. And a very common and popular framework that you can use that we all know about when it comes to defining goals is SMART, right? Your goals have to be SMART. They have to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound, right? And it's very important for the goals to be specific. It can't be like, just improve brand awareness or create or generate more leads for us. You have to be a little more specific, right? Generate uh, an average of, let's say, 20 marketing qualified leads with a conversion with an MQL to SQL conversion of 25% over the next 3 months. That's an example of a specific goal. Similarly, your goals have to be measurable. You have to be able to measure what the outcomes are. They have to be achievable, realistic, relevant, of course, and time bound. The time bound factor goes back to what I said about the short term and long term perspective, right? You define what is short term, you define what is long term. So this is essentially how I look at it. I'm happy to see if you have more thoughts to add to it.
Yeah. So if I am a marketer and starting with a startup, I generally like to work with the founder and the sales team and ask them what do they expect from me. And if I feel like, okay, this is too much and this is not possible in a span of 6 months or a year, I just let them know. And if it is possible, then I go with it. And you're right. Whenever, I mean, I have worked with startups a lot, and the first thing they ask for is we need a lot of sales collateral, we need decks, we need one pages to be created, case studies to be created. While all these things are important, a marketer should also focus on other things. For example, improving the landing page. A lot of companies, when they are in startup phase, they do have website, but their website is not that good. And even the leads that come in there is hardly a way to track the source of the lead, and there is no way to nurture these leads. So if a lead comes in, it directly goes to the salespeople. They send them an email, hey, get on a call and let's have a demo session or something like this, which doesn't work in most cases. Sometimes people, they are just curious, they visited your website, signed up, and maybe they are not ready to buy. So there should be different buckets for different people in different stages and treat them accordingly. So a marketer can, I mean, your first hire, or this could be one expectation from them, improve our website, improve our lead gen process.
Hmm.
And I mean, once you do that, you might start seeing, a channel that is working really good for us, good for you. For example, so the organic, which is basically Google search, maybe you do not have a lot of search traffic, but you get a lot of LinkedIn traffic because your employees, they are very engaged on LinkedIn, and people keep on checking their profile and then come to your website. So maybe LinkedIn could be a great channel, but you don't know that because you're not tracking it. So I guess, yeah, I mean, of course, you need to have smart goals. You can also work with the marketer that you hired and ask them, what should I do? What we can do? How you can help us, and all these questions, and then create a 30, 60, 90-day plan or annual plan, whatever works for you. So I guess, yeah,
True.
that's the best way forward for founders when they are, hiring their first marketer. But you know what? A lot of them, so it's good to create a plan and work with your sales team and marketing team. But what I have noticed a problem is you'll follow that plan for 30 days or 60 days at max, and after that the team, they will have something new for you to work on, right? So for example, this is from my own experience. They kind of not hired, they kind of partnered with a very big client, an enterprise client, and they thought about doing a great PR. So talking about it in all the podcasts, business podcasts, and webinars, posting on news platforms or media platforms, and continuously talking about it on our social media, posting blogs. While all these things sound like great idea, but for a one person marketing team, this is too much because you'll have to set everything aside and only focus on this thing. So the problem, I mean, problem starts occurring when you're in and the plan starts changing. So, what do you think? How should you communicate this to your founder or your boss that we are kind of going out of our way? We are, I mean, things that we planned initially. This thing can impact that. Maybe there's a way for us to, maybe we can hire an external agency who can take care of this for us, and I can focus on our initial plan, or vice versa. So, how do you suggest what should the marketer do?
I think there is nothing like a very, or the only right approach here, right? What some of these events are unavoidable, like especially if it's like you said, you happen to be winning a very large customer, or sometimes there is a very investor driven campaign as well. Like for example, if the company receives funding and they want to take marketing or campaigning in a certain direction for at least next 2 to 3 weeks, most of the time you have to end up doing it, right? And there are a few workarounds wherein you can do it and still continue to focus on what you're doing, right? One thing is what you mentioned, get an agency to either do what take care of the new activity where you focus on your key strengths, right? Which in most cases, I mean, it really depends on how the founders see it. But if it's a very critical campaign that they want to run, they would want someone internal to drive it, right? So in most cases, even if you're getting an agency, you would still have to be involved in coordinating with the agency, getting things done, making sure that everything is in line with what the business wants or what the founders expect, right? So you'll still have to be involved, but at the same time, it's not your entire time going into it, right? That is one way of doing it. Plus, what you can also do in parallel is to get some sort of extra help. It can be, it need not be from an agency alone. You can also think about hiring freelancers. Let's say for example, your regular activity is posting two articles every week, right? And 3 social media posts, let's say. What you can do is, these are not very complicated stuff, right? Unless you're in a very niche space that people don't understand, these are not very complicated. Just hire a freelancer to do this stuff for you, where you obviously have to coordinate. The marketing manager has to coordinate and guide, of course. But it's not your entire time going into doing this stuff, right? So basically you try to balance these two different pieces by taking external help. Plus, instead of trying to hire maybe like a very experienced person to support you, maybe try to get the budget for hiring, let's say, a fresher or an intern who can support you with some of the execution stuff, right? You can have someone, a freelancer, create content for you, but you can have an intern go and post it on LinkedIn, right? Or any social media platform. People know how to post on social media platforms. That's not very complicated, right? So basically you try to balance everything by taking, let's say, external agency help or freelancers help. And instead of maybe trying to hire a full-time person who has like 5 6 years of experience, for which you're unlikely to get approval in terms of budget, and it takes time, right? Go hire interns who are easy to get, who can support you with a lot of execution. So this is how I would approach the problem if that kind of a situation comes.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you're a one-person marketing team or a really small marketing team, the freelancers and the interns, they are basically a really good support system. I think it helps if you already have a few people in your network that you can rely on and reach out to whenever you need, for example, copywriting help or performance marketing help and all these kind of helps. So I think having a strong network really helps.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. I mean, you touched upon a really interesting point, which is when you are a startup and you are the only person in marketing, you almost never have budget to do a lot of things, be it hiring or buying new tools or maybe running ads or and all these things. So, how do you suggest we can set aside a target or create a marketing budget for all these things? What is the what would be the best approach for this marketer? Because this marketer is also going to answer to the founder or CEO or the sales director, whoever he or she is reporting to. So what do you think? How should the marketer decide the budget for hiring tools, ads, and other things happening in marketing?
Yeah, like you said, startups have to do more with less, right? I mean, that's expected of a startup, and especially given the economic situation today, there isn't a lot of funding happening, and funding has dried up. People are looking for ways to cut costs, and the very first function that everyone looks at is marketing. So with all this situation happening, you you as a marketing manager has to operate very lean. You have to run the marketing function very lean, cut costs wherever possible, and only spend on things that you think are really going to benefit you as a business, right? So that's the basic premise. Now, when it comes to operating, so before I talk about the ways in which you can actually operate lean, the very first thing to sort of chart out is what are your priorities, right? I spoke about short term and long term goals. List down those goals. Think about, like you said, if you are a one member, two member marketing team, you are not going to be able to do in most cases all on your own. You need to have some kind of a support system, be it in the form of interns, freelancers, or agencies. You need to have some kind of a support system. Now, list down all those support systems that you need. Do you need and the areas where you need help, right? Is it content marketing? Is it social media? Is it video marketing? And think about those things which will give you some quick wins, and those things for which you can get approval as well, right? And arrive at a rough figure that you will need in terms of the total budget. I mean, budget calculation is not a simple process. I've even written about it as to how we can create an annual B2B marketing budget. But the whole principle while you do it is, you try to operate very lean and try to cut costs wherever possible, and not overspend or not spend on things that might not really show results quickly, right? So that said, what are the ways in which you can really operate lean, right? The major costs are people, of course, and you know that's already a given. Most of the time it's just a one or two member marketing team. The next thing is that costs you money is tools, for example, right? One question that I very often get is, how can I build a marketing tech stack given that a lot of these tools are expensive? And I've written about this as well, wherein you can create a full-fledged marketing tech stack just at $1,260 per year. I mean, that number sounds a little weird, but that's the total number that I arrived at by looking at different options across different areas of the marketing tech stack, right? So it's possible to set up a marketing tech stack, a full-fledged tech stack at just $1,200 per year, right? The next thing is that when you go ahead and do campaigns, don't go behind those cool stuff that people are talking about, which will cost you money. For example, don't start with LinkedIn ads yet, especially when you don't have budget, when you have not figured out what kind of messaging works with your prospects and customers. Don't start with it, but rather you could go and experiment with Google ads, for example. For as less as 300 per month, you can start to run Google ads, uh, and start to observe some patterns, right? So when it comes to campaigns, pick those things that will not cost you a lot of money. And marketing campaigns are not just paid ads, right? You can look at email marketing, you can look at organic social media, you can look at SEO. Not that these things don't cost, but they're relatively cheaper compared to a lot of other expensive channels like LinkedIn ads, right? And if you don't have the capability of creating, let's say, videos internally, that is also going to cost you money, right? In which case you can always turn to tools which can help you create videos easy, like Canva, for example, right? The paid version of Canva costs only 4,000 per year, right? And you can get a lot done with Canva, right? So basically, in terms of tools, in terms of spending, in terms of hiring people, in terms of creating a support system, always think about operating lean. And given all the resources, all the options you have today, it can't be an excuse that you cannot operate a marketing team lean, right? And I've also written about how you can build a lean B2B marketing team when you're tight on budget, right? So everything is possible given the myriad of options that you have when it comes to all these things today.
Yeah, right. And I want to go back to the number that you shared. So, where can we see that calculation? Are you still working on the article, or has this been published?
This has been published. I think this was 3 to 4 months ago. So the best place to find it is my LinkedIn newsletter. Uh, I think this was, yeah, like I said, 3 to 4 months back, where I had looked at different categories of marketing tools, and I looked at the cheapest. Some of the options are free, and those which cost money, I looked at the cheapest options. They might not be the best tools out there, but I essentially wanted to communicate that you can do create a marketing tech stack, build a marketing tech stack with as less as $1,260, and it can be even lesser also. It's not like a magic number. You can do more even with lesser, but the idea that I'm I try to communicate is that you really don't need $10,000 a month to build a marketing tech stack.
Yeah, right. So I will find that article and link it here. And this sounds super interesting because whenever we talk about budget or anyone talks about budget, they will give you this vague idea about to try this, you try that, this tool, that tool, or ads or whatever. But nobody shares a number, right? They just tell you what to use and what to try. But um, having a benchmark number can really help you get started. And yeah, this is interesting. I would love to read it and share it with everyone else as well. I have this very great example that I want to share. So I was working with this company, and they kind of deal in really cool tone colors. Okay, so
Huh?
they go for. I mean, this is their brand color. So I joined, and I decided to use some poppy colors like yellow, and it was immediately rejected that this is not our brand color. And I was like, okay, let's just test this and see. I mean, we will run some kind of ad, and we'll see which color gets us more impressions or clicks or conversion or whatever. So interestingly enough, the yellow not copies, designs, the yellow creators, they got more attention,
Okay.
and immediately after they changed their branding guide, and they incorporated yellow to their brand color. So it was interesting
Interesting.
because when you're a startup, you essentially don't have any brand colors or brand style guide. And even if you are an enterprise, a lot of companies, they change their logos, their colors, their branding entirely after a point. So I think this idea that this is our brand color and we are not going to look beyond this could be harmful. And same is true with messaging. Some people, they are like, no, we are a very we are very poised, and we don't want to talk in slang, not slang, but a conversational tone. We want to keep it polite and formal. And as soon as they try a conversational punchy tone, they start getting more impressions, more visibility. And then they're like, oh, this we were missing this with our polite tone, because polite is boring, to be honest, especially on social media or in ad game. You are not there to read a 300 word ad. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So
No, no, it's
yeah.
it's so relatable what you said, right? I have a friend who's working in a startup. I don't want to name the company, but they're she's actually going through the same trouble, wherein the company is so adamant about using uh, jargons and stuff, language that people don't understand. Actually, I was on a call with him yesterday, and he was explaining a few terminologies they were using. Actually, they sell to marketers, by the way. They sell a marketing solution, and I told him I've been in marketing for 7 years. I don't understand many of these things, and that's exactly what his point was. And he said he tried to convince them, to change it and go with a more, like you said, a conversational or casual tone, but they're not up for it, right? So I mean, it's so relatable, and it happens in a lot of companies. Actually, it's surprising that it happens in a startup, right? In a large enterprise, you see this fixed attitude, but it really seems to be happening in the startup world as well. So it's so relatable what you just said.
Yeah. And even with enterprise or big companies, I think I mean, for starters, they have different marketing teams. So it's not just one person taking decision. And I understand why it takes a lot of time, because it'll have to go through the idea will have to go through multiple people and multiple round of discussion, and maybe involvement of legal team and all these things. But when you're in startup and the team is really small, these decisions should be quick. And when it comes to marketing and messaging, there is no one solution. You will have to keep on changing and reinventing your brand, because I don't think for example, this thing, I found out that okay, yellow works, and 3 months later a new marketer joins, and they have an idea, okay, let's try pink. And I'm like, no, 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 yellow was last time, you cannot try pink. So if I become that person, and this usually what happens in the team, they try and they do one thing, they see a success, and then they're like, this is our bible, and we follow this. So yeah, I want to talk about your I mean, in the last meeting we had, we kind of discussed you're working on an article which covers an extensive, a really comprehensive marketing plan for startup. So it starts from business analysis, positioning, messaging, competitor benchmarking, and all these things. to what kind of marketing technologies people can use when they are starting. So when are you publishing this article? Because I would love to link it here.
I did yesterday, in fact. So my
Oh,
newsletter goes out every Tuesday at 10 a.m. IST. So I did publish the article on how to create a marketing plan for B2B startups.
oh, great. Then so I'll link it in the description.
Yeah, so
Great.
it has all these things that you spoke about, right? Business analysis and summary, competitor
Yeah.
benchmarking. And one common mistake that I see a lot of marketers do is, for marketers, marketing is just marketing, right? Where I see a lot of gap is people don't try to understand what the business's goals are and then translate into them into marketing activities, right? Usually the way a conventional marketer thinks is that, okay, what are the campaigns that I'm going to run this month? What content should I create? But they don't think from a perspective of what these content or how these content pieces and campaigns help them achieve the goals the business has, right? Which is why it is absolutely important for someone to start from the angle of understanding the business while creating a marketing plan. So that's something that I've tried to address throughout the plan, and it has all the other common elements that a marketing plan should have, like, like you said, competitor benchmarking, how to choose the right channels, how to create a content marketing plan, and all this stuff. And the entire premise of this content is that you have to really think lean, like we mentioned in the case of creating a budget. You have to think really lean when it comes to creating a marketing plan for B2B startups, which is essentially how it is different from an enterprise marketing plan. I mean, there are other ways in which it is different, which I've explained in the article. So yeah, I mean, it has been published, and it also comes with a ready to use marketing plan template, which you can just download right away and start using for your own business.
Interesting. I think this can be really helpful for marketers who are working in with startups. So yeah, it's super interesting. I'll also take a look. I mean, we are talking about lean teams, right? So if you're a founder, or maybe you're consulting a founder, they often struggle with this question: who should I hire as my first marketing person? Should it be a CMO, a director, a marketing manager, uh, or a specialist? Maybe if they want to get started with content, they maybe hire a copywriter or content writer. So who should be your first marketing hire?
So it really depends on the stage that your business is in and what you want marketing to achieve. I see this very common tendency of founders wanting to hire a VP of marketing without actually having built a strong base of marketing. And what I mean by that is, a VP of marketing single-handedly cannot do the magic for your business. You got to build some foundation, and there has to be a support system which will help the CMO or head of marketing achieve his or her goals. And what I mean by that is, let's say you hire a CMO or a head of marketing, and he or she is the first marketing hire in the company. What is the person supposed to do? Maybe you have an external agency help, but that is not sustainable, and you can't just depend on agency always. I see the struggle happening in on the ground when I speak to a lot of CEOs in my consulting gigs. They have this trouble of overly depending on agencies, and if they do a bad job, and that's it, their marketing goes for a toss. And even if you bring in a CMO or VP, the VP or CMO can guide the agency, but the output comes out really depends on how good or bad the agency is. So that over dependence has to be avoided. You have to build a team internally. So if you are thinking, there are different angles to look at it. Let's say you really want to hire a head of marketing, right? If you're planning to do that, hire one or two marketing managers along with the CMO who can support the VP of marketing in getting things done, in making sure the thoughts, the strategy, the tactics that the VP is putting forward is being implemented or executed. That is one way of looking at it. The second way of doing it is, you don't hire a CMO on day one. Rather, you hire, let's say, one or two marketing managers, or maybe a marketing lead and a marketing manager. Build like a decent foundation in terms of creating content, in terms of creating the positioning, the messaging, etc. Run that engine for maybe 5 months, 6 months, then bring in someone senior who can really push that momentum forward to help your business grow to heights that you really want, right? So this is if you're really particular about hiring a head of marketing, this is how you should do it. But what I recommend when a startup starts hiring uh, is first marketing person is, maybe start with someone who is recently experienced, let's say 5 6 years of experience, who can guide people on how to get things done, who can bring in a flavor of strategy, but is also hands on in doing a certain things. And who you really want to hire also depends on what you want to achieve. And what I mean by that is, let's say uh, you want to create a lot of content, and for the reason that you don't want to depend on someone external, let's say maybe you can bring in a content marketer who's hands on creating content across different channels, but also can add a bit of strategy to how you do content marketing, right? Or if you really want someone who want someone who can position yourself as a good brand in the market, right? You can bring in someone with an experience of branding, and complement him or her with external help in the other areas, right? So I would recommend, long story short, I would recommend hiring a marketing lead initially, and maybe bring in a VP or CMO at a later point in time.
When I used to interview with startups a lot, um, I kind of I have seen this red flag with a few companies. They are not clear about their goal, as to why they are hiring their marketing person. Most of them, they'll come up with requirements like, we need sales collateral, we need decks, and they are unsure what other things this marketing person can do. So yeah, so this is a very big red flag for me. If I'm interviewing with someone and they just ask me to create sales collateral, I will probably pitch them myself as a freelancer. If you want 10 collateral, hire me as a freelancer. I'll create those for you and then I'm done. Because if I'm joining you as a marketer, there is thousand different things I can do as well. So this is an immediate red flag for me, and I immediately switched to the freelancing mode from the employee mode. And yeah, and I've also seen people making this founders making this mistake where they hired a VP of marketing or a CMO, and they ended up realizing, because it, even if they have like 15 years or 20 years of experience, they're just one person. They can do so much in a day or a month. They need some help and support. Of course, they would have amazing strategies, perhaps, but they will not have resources, people to execute them. So yeah, I mean, hiring a 15-year experienced person is not going to get you results faster. So yeah, hiring a few leads and managers and maybe a few specialists if you have budget, because a VP or a CMO would be way more expensive. So you can take that budget and hire uh, two or three different people from that budget, different experiences, and see what happens. And then once you have like a good thing going on, you can hire a VP or a CMO. And recently, I discovered this amazing thing while going through LinkedIn and checking different people's website. So there are these people called fractional CMOs.
Yeah.
So they will give you strategic advice, how to improve your marketing, but they'll not be a full time CMO. So you can cut your cost there. You can just take their advice on how to improve your marketing. So maybe instead of even if you have a like really nice marketing thing going on, you have 3 4 5 people in your team, maybe more. You can start with fractional CMO and see how it goes. Do you really need a CMO at this point, or maybe your existing marketing team is doing great and they just need some strategic help? So go for
Or they could hire a marketing consultant like me.
yeah, definitely they can do that. And honestly, I think this is one of the mistakes that most founders make is they assume stuff. They'll read a blog perhaps, or an article on the internet, and then they'll think, okay, this is how the marketing is done. But sometimes it's really important to hire an advisor or a consultant to just tell you the kind of mistakes you are making in marketing, or just an external point of view. So maybe I I I say this a lot to the people I work with is when you are working with a company, you think like a company, you don't think like a buyer. So sometimes you need an external person and that person can call you out. That this messaging doesn't work. I don't understand what you're saying there. This particular line, this means nothing to me. Similarly, when so I notice this a lot with startups is they go for these awards so as social proof. So I mean, we all know that these awards are
Are
paid.
what?
You pay and you get the award. I don't know a lot of. I mean, everyone in B2B market they know that these top 50 list or these best technology award in certain niche. These things are being bought or sold. So when it comes to actually getting our customers, I don't think these things help. Okay, these are good for social proof, do that, but don't entirely focus on the award section. And I always call people out that people don't care about your products. Oh, sorry, awards. They don't care about what awards you have won, what kind of list you're part of, whether your CEO has been 40 under 40 or 30 under 30. Nobody cares. They just want you to solve a problem that they are having.
And
So yeah.
interestingly, even these G2 and capitalist, right? Even there you can run ads. I mean, I did not know about it, maybe until a year back. So you can run ads even on the G2. So how can I really trust, the credibility of what you see on a G2, right? I mean, obviously you can do a little more deep dive. You're not gonna buy a product just based on a review that you see on or a listing that you see on a G2 or Captra, but that does have some influence, and a lot of people actually did not know. Interestingly, whoever I speak to, they really did not know that you could run ads on G2 and be on the top of the listings. But anyway, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, buying credentials, buying awards, that's something, I truly hate, and I wouldn't encourage anyone to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know, maybe people who have experience in marketing a little bit, they would know. But honestly, I mean, be it a award that you actually won based on your credibility or something you bought, your buyers don't care at the end of the day that you're part of a list of top 10 technology. They care about what how you can help them, because if I am buying, I bought this tool Riverside to record this podcast, and I tested their free platform and I liked it, and that's why I bought the premium version. I don't know what kind of awards they have won. I'm sure they might have because they are a leader in the podcast recording platform field. So I know they might have won, but I don't know and I don't care. I just care about the kind of quality they are giving me, the kind of support they have offered me. So that's why I'm paying them money to record the podcast. So similarly, if you are a buyer, you only care about the product, the features, and the support. And this is where companies should majorly focus on. And I absolutely hate paid awards and all these things. Back to the first hire and a few red flags that I talked about. So if you're joining as one of the first marketers, you will sorry about that. You will have to work on creating content, be it a blog or newsletter or I don't know, sales deck or one pages. So all these content creation becomes really important, and you'll have to start with content. I mean, everything in marketing starts with content, is what I believe. So how should you look at it? Because the sales, they'll keep on asking you about sales material. Then you have your own traffic target with your blog or other organic things that you are doing on maybe social media. And then you have other experimental things going on. For example, you decided to create a report for lead gen and things like that. So what are the key marketing materials, and how should I divide my resources or time between all these things?
Yeah, so that's one area where a lot of changes are happening, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, right? We're living in the era of dark social and dark funnels, wherein you're not desperate to get someone's email ID. At content syndication campaigns or creating surveys and reports to just get people's email ID is not a very popular model anymore. Not that it doesn't help. Obviously, you can do a lot of remarketing, add them to a newsletter, maybe keep educating them, and at the end of it, sell to them. Right? That's definitely one. There are ways in which you can actually make it work, but it's not like where you get an email ID and the SDR starts bombarding the person with messages and all that stuff and try to sell immediately. That model isn't relevant anymore. We are living in an era where people seek out information much more, even before they reach out to you, right? If I remember the number correct, according to Gartner, 83% of the time buyers spend researching and understanding a product even before talking to sales. So what this essentially means is that you have to keep serving content to engage your prospects this 83% of the time, right? You can only hook them to through your presentation, the remaining 17% of the time. So if you want to do it, you have to consistently show up on platforms where people seek or look for content that are helpful to them, right? And that's not usually email. I mean, you can have a newsletter to educate people, but that's just one part of it. So content is about building trust, it is about building credibility. And once you have that foundation set, trust, once you win that trust of your prospects, you want them to come to you rather than you wanting to go to them, right? That's how the entire cycle should work. Given this reality, given this new shift in the way in which buyers look for information, look for products, trying to learn more about them, you got to focus on content which might not be directly always attributable, right? What I mean by that is organic social media. And if you're in the B2B space, LinkedIn is the best place to be in. Blogging and SEO led content, right? Video marketing. And if you have the resources, go for hosting your own podcast, or you can appear on other podcasts like what or how I am doing in your podcast, right? So basically, you're gonna create a web of content that's not very email centric or contact centric or person centric, rather than you're trying to address a segment of people who would like the problem that your products or services are solving to be solved for their business, right? So you if you were to if I am to list down the content types, I would say SEO led content, plus organic social media. If you have the resources, go for video and podcasting. Plus you got to complement this with some credentials, right? Customer stories, for example, whether you create it in the form of a PDF or a customer story video, you need to talk about what you have done for your customers. And there is this whole debate of whether you should gate a case study or ungate it. I've seen both the perspectives, and there are pros and cons to both. But if you really want to sort of increase and enhance your conversion from, let's say, an MQL to an SQL or SQL to opportunity, in short, if you want to generate high intent leads, it's sort of better that you ungate your content so that you only get downloads from people or only get queries from people who are really interested in buying from you, right? Somebody downloading your case study might not have an intent today, right? So it's not an indication of I mean, it is some indication that that might be interest, but it's not an indication of immediate interest, right? So basically, you build trust and credibility using a combination of these content types, and this is where you should initially focus on. And if you have the budget and the resources, you can even think about traveling to events where your prospect buyers are there, or they usually come to, right? And it can be large events, or it can be these mastermind kind of events where there is a gathering of a small number of people. If you have the resources and budget to do it, you can think about that as well. But in terms of pure content creation, like I said, organic social, blog, SEO led content, video and podcasting plus customer success stories are a great place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of agree with you that gated content or this approach of getting email addresses at any cost doesn't work anymore. People are not really open to sharing their emails anymore, and and even if you are getting a download on case study, it's not a high intent lead most times. Sometimes your competitor is trying to look at what you're doing, uh, uh, or for example, I follow a few B2B brands. They create amazing content, and I sometimes download their reports and guide. It's not relevant, I just download them to understand how they have created it, their design, their flow, and all these things for the research purposes. So it's possible a lot of people who are downloading your resources or signing up are not a fit. So maybe opening up your yeah, or ungating all your, or not all your, most of your marketing material can really help you improve the quality of the lead that you're generating, because then only interested people would sign up, because everyone else can get your content for free, so they
Yeah,
will
and
not sign up.
I've seen a lot of companies doing this, which I think works really well, wherein you ungate your case study and have all the case study content indexed on your landing page, and you have a button wherein people can download the PDF if they want, without having to enter their email address. And with Google Analytics 4, you can even track file downloads now, right? So you don't have a problem in tracking. You know how many people have visited a page. You can actually create a funnel out of it, right? Wherein how many people visited, how many people clicked the download button to download the PDF, and that's another indication of what is the interest that you have in the customer success story that you created. And obviously, if someone comes through your contact us form and they tell you that looked at your case study, I saw your LinkedIn content, I read your article, that's validation that your content is working. And mm, as you decide on these content types, one important thing to do is you got to build a system for it, right? It's rather than just saying, okay, I'll do blogging when I like and I'll post when I want, when I feel like. You got to create a consistent system for it, wherein you keep doing it irrespective of what is happening, right? I mean, uh, you will, let's say for example, you decide on a cadence of creating 2 articles per week. What else are you going to do with those 2 articles, right? Can you repurpose that into your social media posts? Can you repurpose that into a video, or vice versa? Let's say one thing that I let's take webinars for example. One thing that I see a lot of companies miss out on in terms of content scaling is they do a webinar and they forget about it. I mean, nobody sees it. It gets a boost when you run like 1 or 2 campaigns initially, and that's it. It just lies on your YouTube channel for no one to see. The way you actually give it more reach is you maybe split them into smaller video snippets. You repurpose that into a full article, then you repurpose that article into social media posts. That spreads your thoughts, your perspectives, than just one piece of content sitting there and collecting dust, right? So it's also about building a system wherein you can consistently distribute your content through the right channels. And again, I happen to have written about this topic again on how you should find the perfect mix of channels for content distribution. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's not just about what content type. It's also about what system you have in place that will help you consistently create content that is high value. Thought leaders that we all really look up to, right? They do this, and one name that I can give you is Chris Walker, right? Who's the CEO of Refine Labs. Is is very popular nowadays in the marketing, B2B marketing and RevOps world. And I happen to be seeing a lot of his content LinkedIn, so much that I myself got bored of it. He talks about attribution, how attribution system is flawed. I mean, high level thoughts, no doubt about it. But I saw it again and again, and he's just reiterating the same stuff and repackaging it. That I got bored of it after a point, and I don't see him talking about new stuff. I mean, you can't expect a person to be talking about new things every day, right? But I listened to his podcast, I see his LinkedIn video. It became so much of an overload of attribution data or attribution information in my head that I got bored of it. That's so it's about finding a balance, right? I mean, you obviously there is a certain stream of thought that you hold very strong onto, but at the same time, it's also about finding that balance wherein you have a good mix of uh, existing or current thoughts that you have been talking about, plus you also add in that fresh perspective every now and then for people to uh, take away something new out of it, right?
But hey, the next time you need any help with attribution, I think he would be the first person you go for.
Yeah,
Or even if a founder or a CMO or any marketing person, they are facing any problem related to that issue, I think he would be the first person they will go to, or maybe find if they search LinkedIn. So maybe it
I
works
mean,
for
he's
him.
the attribution king, so no doubt there. I mean, he has definitely made an impact, so no doubt about it. I follow his thoughts very
Hmm.
closely, and I think they're very practical. A lot of marketing thought leaders talk about concepts, but he has uh, really made it, work for a lot of for his own business. I think, when for a lot of customers, I get seeing other people's opinions on how they made it work. So I mean, no doubt that his thoughts are really high level, and it sometimes does make sense to sort of reiterate, because it also you could also look at it from an angle of you wanting to restate something for people to believe it, right? You really need to say certain things 100 times if someone has to accept it, right? So even a Chris Walker has to do a lot of work to convince people that your attribution old age attribution system is flawed, and you have to look at marketing in a completely different perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, true. So I have one final question for you, and then I'll let you go. So we talked about a lot of things, right? Content creation, budget, and all these things. And everything boils down to numbers, right? Marketing numbers. How good is marketing doing? You measure it by either traffic, then amount of lead they have generated, conversion, and so on. So early on, it's very difficult to see result, and the situation becomes really tricky for the marketer as well as the CEO or the founder, because they are spending on this marketing person. Maybe they are spending on bunch of tools and ads and all these things. So they need an ROI, right? So how can you be or how to be patient with your marketing team or marketing efforts? How do you suggest founders should look at it?
So I this was the topic of discussion with one of my mentees last week, and she's apparently joining a new company as a marketing lead, and she asked me the exact same question as to how to address this from her standpoint. From a founder standpoint, it's really important for them to understand the difference between long term and short term goals, right? What usually happens is that see, it's not a founder's fault as such. They have their own goals, but the way they translate it into different types of activities, let's say sales, product marketing, might not be the right way of doing it in many cases. What usually you see that in the startup ecosystem, a lot of founders are they're either very tech oriented. Some of them come from maybe sales, but you really don't have a marketer who sits at the top of a startup, right? Or you hardly see founders who understand marketing. So it's mostly because of their background. But what is really required is for founders and CEOs of startups to understand the difference between short term and long term objectives. What is that they can see work in the short term? What is it that they can see work in the long term, right? If if you are expecting your blog post to rank on the first top three results of Google search over the first 2 3 days, that is definitely not going to happen unless you create a buzz like what ChatGPT did, right? So you got to understand that SEO takes time. Similarly, you got to understand that video takes time, social media marketing takes time, right? And whatever measurement mechanisms you have, you got to be patient with it. But obviously, as a founder, as a CEO, you cannot just sit there saying that, oh yeah, these things are going to take time, so let me just wait for things to turn around, right? So that can't be the case. So how do you address this particular problem? So you want your marketing lead to be thinking about some short term and quick wins as well, right? And they are not easy to achieve, but there are definitely ways in which you can make those work, right? For example, you can email marketing is something that you can actually start very immediately, right? You can start a few outbound campaigns. It's as simple as downloading data from a B2B database, creating content, uploading it on a tool, and sending email campaigns. I mean, it's not as simple as this. This is not the right way of doing it, but I'm saying you can create some awareness very quickly and maybe get one or two quick wins using something like LinkedIn email marketing. Another example is LinkedIn outreach. Sales Navigator is a tool that everyone uses. You can, though it might not be very successful if you implement these channels, these tactics in isolation. These things. These are the only places where you can go to if you want to show some quick results. Another thing is cold call, right? Cold calling, again, it has pros and cons to it, but the way I would make these short term approaches or tactics work is not by implementing them in isolation. So I spoke about email marketing, I spoke about LinkedIn outreach, I spoke about cold call. What if you can use all of this in combination, right? What I mean by that is, let's say you create a very narrow targeted list of accounts that you want to go after. Let's say whatever 200, 250. You come up with only three or four uh, relevant buyers or decision makers in those companies, and you run very personalized email marketing campaigns to them, and you combine this with LinkedIn outreach and cold calling. Let's take a very specific example, right? When I Let's say if I'm starting with an email campaign, my first email would go out as a highly personalized email. Not those personalized emails like hi first name, I'm from
Mhm.
company name, not that kind of personalization. I'm talking about real personalization where you do research about the prospect, and you're going to do this only for 700,000 people, not like 5,000 people. So you can build this over time. So you send that first personalized email, and then you can later add them into a cadence of common emails. You combine this with your LinkedIn outreach. When you reach out to a person on LinkedIn, you say, hey, I had sent you an email regarding this, would like to connect and discuss further. If you don't get a response there, you graduate yourself into a cold call wherein you call the person. If you're not able to directly reach out to the person, or if you're being blocked by a borderline, you can always say that I had emailed Mr. John, and now I would like to talk to him and discuss this further. And most of the times you get through it, right? So essentially the point is that you combine these techniques instead of using them in isolation and try to make them work. There are a few other short term wins as well that you can look at. For example, Google ads. It's not that expensive to run Google ads. You need to have obviously the supporting content, the supporting assets. It could be in the form of a landing page, or whether it can be in the form of videos, your customer success stories, testimonials, whatever they are. You got to have these supporting assets. Given you have this, you can think about running something like Google ads, right? So that's effective in the short term. So look at long term, look at what you can do in the long term, look at what you can do in the short term, understand the difference of how these work, and prioritize your marketing activities based on this, right? And that's what you should expect your a founder should expect a marketing person to do, and that's how the marketing person should also think, so that they are able to show some results in the short term, while they continue to consistently focus on things that will give them results only over the long term.
Right. So, of course, the strategy could be different for different business based on their expectation and their market, but it's marketing. I think the problem is exactly there. Not a lot of CMOs become CEO, right? Or a lot of marketing people end up becoming CEO unless they have like a marketing agency or marketing specific business. Um, so these CEOs, they generally have tech backgrounds, majorly have tech backgrounds, and they happen to get involved in sales because they when the team is small, you're joining the sales call, you're pitching, you're also pitching to investors. So the sales also become a part of your skill sets. So you start looking at marketing as an extension to the sales, which is
Yeah.
not wrong entirely, but they start expecting the same. So if you hired a salesperson, you train them for a month or two, and after a few days, they'll get on sales call, and bang, you have a new client. So you can see your ROI. Okay, I spent this much dollar on this person. They got me this client. I have some ROI. In future, it will increase or reach a certain number. So this is a good hire. But in marketing, this is not as easy as this. The marketer has to work on improving things first, generating things for you, and there is no direct ROI that you can measure. So, for example, your first marketer, they created a bunch of case studies. They created, improved your landing page. They created one pages, and now your sales team is using all these assets and closing clients. But you cannot give 100% attribution to the marketing person when it comes to, because your salespeople, they were closing clients before your marketing person joined. Yes, but now they have some help. So this ROI calculation is not uh, the right way of measuring the marketing effort, especially when this is super new. The marketing team is really new. They have just started creating things. Maybe 3 years down the line, you have started building a marketing team. Now it's been 3 years. You have seen some MQL, some leads. Now this is the time for you to look at numbers, the ROI from the marketing team, and it's okay for your marketing team to have MQL, SQL opportunity goals, because this will keep them pushing and improving their content. But for a really new team, having this ROI expectation or calculation would not work for you. You'll end up hiring or firing marketers, and it'll go nowhere. So you need a consistent team working for you for at least 3, 4, 5 years in order for you to see any marketing results. And I'm a strong believer that if you are if you are just creating your marketing team, hire generalists. Do not hire specialists. If you need specialist help, go for freelancers. But start with generalists, because they will be open to taking up more responsibilities, working on different things, and experimenting a lot, because this is what you need right now. So even if I have worked in the same niche, which is ad tech. and I've worked with different companies, and I've noticed the strategies that are used for company A doesn't work on company B, even if they have the same market, they're
Yeah,
targeting the same
yeah,
market.
happens.
So it's never one size fit all, even if you're working in the same niche. Of course, you can take some ideas, some strategies from your previous company or previous experience, but it is not going to entirely work. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what I've seen you taking forward your thought on how founders look at marketing. They always tend to compare it with sales, and what people essentially don't understand is you don't there is no sales if there is no product, right? Similarly, and people acknowledge this fact, a lot of them, because founders, they know that if there is no product, there is nothing that you can sell. But not many understand, you don't have anybody to sell to if you don't create that top of the funnel demand. And who's responsible mostly for creating that top of the funnel demand? It's marketing, right? In a startup, that ratio is going to be slightly on the lower side, because you start with, with your network, building an SDR team usually. But over time, that ratio is going to increase, wherein, high as 80 to 90% of the pipeline comes from marketing. And you don't realize, that's how marketing functions, and that layer has to be at the top for sales to convert. That's one point. The second thing is that I think marketing lies, if you were to look at the nature of the functions of, let's say, product and sales, marketing sort of lies in the intersection, wherein product teams, if they have to come up with a new feature, they have to work on it for like 2 months, 3 months, right? And nobody is expecting them to uh, deliver results before that time frame. Obviously, there is a pressure, but nobody's gonna go and ask them after 1 week, hey, where is the revenue from this new feature, right? Nobody's gonna do that. So product can wait. People understand that product building a product takes time, but people don't have the same understanding with marketing. But obviously, building a marketing engine is not as complex as building a product, which is why I said it sort of lies at the intersection, or sort of in between. If you were to draw a line between product and sales, marketing sort of lies in between, where it is not as long term as the product function, but it's not as short term as the sales team, right? It sort of lies in between, and you have to understand how the whole mechanics work, which is why I was saying it's important to understand the difference between what the marketing team can achieve in the short term as well as the long term. So
mm,
just wanted to add that.
yeah. I mean, comparing it with other teams, it's very tricky. I mean, you're not never going to compare sales function and product tech function because they are entirely different things. Similarly, your customer support team, you'll not compare it with with what your people's team or HR team is doing. Similarly, marketing is also a standalone team. They have a bunch of different work they do. But yeah, I think this idea needs to change, especially in B2B, that marketing is an extension of sales, and we will have this similar kind of target for them. And I have noticed this with, I mean, there are a lot of companies who will just start, and within 3-4 years they are like, if this is what everyone is talking about. So I remember Notion is one of those companies. They just launched, and within 2-3 years, everyone was talking about Notion. But I mean, Notion is this project management tool, which
Yeah.
I mean, not it's not just project management tool anymore. It's like a wiki for your company. But this is how they started, as a project management tool, and the industry, the market, it already had bunch of other tools as well. But no, the Notion came and it kind of took or made its place in the market. And I think the not the entire credit, but one of the a major amount of credit goes to their marketing team, because there are other tools as well, like ClickUp, which is a competitor of Notion, but it's not as popular as Notion, or as good as Notion in my experience. So I think the early marketing really helps. So a lot of founders, they think, okay, I'll just build my product, I get some sales, and then I'll focus on marketing. And this never happens, because they think marketing like an expense or a risk, and they don't end up investing in it. They are like, okay, we are comfortable. And a lot of founders, they also have acquisition in their mind, so they just want to build their business up until certain level, and they just want to sell it and retire. So a lot of founders, they also have this idea. So if you're a marketer and working in such a company, you will not be able to grow This is what I believe. And yeah, so as a marketer, I think there are a lot of things that you can see when you're interviewing as a red flag. And whenever you notice a red flag, you can just tell them to hire you as a freelancer. This is what I do. If I need the money. Your brand is good. I want to get associated, but I can't work with you because you're not clear with your marketing goals. Just hire me as a freelancer. So this is what I do.
Yeah, makes
So yeah,
sense.
these are the questions, and it was really interesting. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rashmita. It was a pleasure talking to you.